All right. Good evening, friends, and welcome to our weekly study session. Um, how's everyone doing this evening? I got some thumbs up there. Excellent, excellent. What I wanted to do tonight, we've got about 40 minutes. I'm going to have to, we have to do about 45 minutes tonight. But I just wanted to start, we typically do CompuCram on these. Happy to knock through a couple of sample quizzes and things of that nature for everyone. But before we do that, or maybe instead of doing that for the entirety of our time, I want to open it up to what are we struggling with? What challenges exist? What concepts? Like this is like an ask me anything related to your real estate licensing test. If we have to go look for a question or look something up together, that's fine. It's been about 4 years since I took the exam. So if you catch me a little rusty on something, don't judge me. But, what are the concepts you guys are struggling with that I could help explain? Everything's fair game.
Math.
All right. Gonna ask you to be slightly more specific. I could, I'd have to go back a couple thousand years to start with the base on math. But like, is there anything in like what's the question that when you see you're just like, this is so intimidating?
Probably the figuring out of like if you have 1/4 of the northeast this to the 1/2 of the southeast that, yes.
Okay. So is it just like all those fractions being thrown at you get a little crazy?
Yeah, I think I just get intimidated by the fact of like, it's different when you see it drawn out, but when it just has the words.
Yep.
And you're just like, wait, the what of what? And
yeah. So here's, anytime that you see like, hey, how big is the, area or how big is the parcel that is in the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter of, this section. Mm-hmm. You always start with 640, right? Those questions will always be going off of a section that is 640 acres. That's assumed. And then it doesn't matter what order things are in, whether they're halves or quarters or eighths. You simply divide by whatever is in the denominator, whatever's in the lower half. So if it is the southwest, and guess what? Directions don't matter. So you can just ignore those, ignore the directions, focus on the fraction, and ignore the top half of the fraction and just divide by whatever's on the bottom. So if it's the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter of a section, that's just there's 3 fours. So all you would do is divide by 4 3 times in a row. So 640 divided by 4 is 160. Divided by 4, 160 divided by 4 is 40. 40 divided by 4 is 10. The answer is 10, right?
Gotcha.
And so that's one where, and as we think about the math problems, right? What do you think is more common? Screwing up a math problem because of the numbers, or screwing up a math problem because of the words?
The words probably, because at least I get, like I second guess myself.
Yeah, it's usually something with the words. And there's 2 ways to screw it up based on the words. You either ignore the words, right? Because you think, oh, it's math. What are the numbers, right? And you miss where it says 1/2 of the commission instead of 50% of the commission. So you miss the word 1/2, you miss the question, right? So that's very common. And the other thing is not knowing, It's essentially, they're all a matter of not knowing what's important. Like you worry, like you're trying to picture in your mind the northeast corner of the southwest quarter of the northwest quarter, instead of just looking at like, hey, it's 4, 4, and 4. And so, one of the things that is, I mean, look, I'm no spring chicken. And I think when I took the real estate exam, it had been 15 years since I'd sat down and taken a test. So part of it, guys, is just like good test taking skills. So maybe when we get to about 6:35, somebody remind me to just talk about test taking tips tonight. Because that's a big part of it as well. It kind of ties in to Colleen, what you were talking about, which is, sometimes you get to a question and you're just like, you go cross-eyed because there's so much, there's so many words, so many numbers. And it's like, sometimes we just need to pause and ask ourselves, like, what the hell are they looking for? Right? Like, what's the layperson getting to? And then, go from there. What else?
Right. That's my thing, is like I stress myself out, which goes back to the test taking, right?
Yeah. So I'll go through some strategies there that can make that a lot easier, or it make things easier. And if you have a strategy and you have a plan, work the plan, that can be a good outcome. What else though? What other concepts or definitions, or, oh, this sounds a lot like this thing or the other thing? Ian, are you in a position where you can unmute?
I am.
Oh, excellent. Can you tell me a little bit more about your question, what you're looking for?
So, I keep getting screwed up with the truth in lending on the Quizlets.
Yeah.
But I still have a hard time with capitalization and capitalization rate and when to use it.
Okay. So let's talk about truth in lending. What's tripping you up in truth in lending?
Just the terms, describing it a little bit.
Yeah. So
there's that one, and then there's Reg Z that get me a little bit confused. I guess they get me flustered more than confused.
What's the other one?
Reg Z.
Yeah. Somebody can fact check me,
Regulations.
but I'm pretty sure that those are the same. It's just two names for the same thing. Or maybe Regulation Z is part of RESPA. We'll get to the bottom of that. I'll look that up while we're on the phone, while we're on the Zoom here. Let's talk about truth in lending, right? So truth in lending is very simple. If you describe anything in specific detail related to the loan, you have to describe everything in full detail related to the loan. So the question you typically see is favorable rates available, right? What has to be disclosed? Nothing, right? Because it's a subjective statement that does not define whether those rates are on a 30-year or a 5-year, or they're fixed, or they're variable, or they're anything. But as soon as you say favorable rates available on 30-year loans, well, now you've defined the term. So then you have to define all the mechanics of that financial tool. So truth in lending, that way you can't say 2% interest rates available. It's 2% interest rates available on a 30-year adjustable rate mortgage, right? You have to give what type of mortgage it is, what the term is, and what the rate is, if you give any part of it. But if you're giving no part of it, then there's nothing required. How does that
So then
sound?
that's only in relation to the loans, correct?
That's right. That's why it's truth in lending.
Okay. That makes more sense. Okay.
Yep.
And then just when to use capitalization rate, and how to pull that number up.
Yeah. So look, cap rate, anytime you see when you see rate related to return on investment, right? that is going to be your capitalization rate, or in the terms of what they're using it for on the exam, that's your cap rate, is related to rates of return on an investment or on a property. So the way that I don't know if you learned it in your classes this way, or if there is, I teach it with the IVR method. And let me see if I can throw up so you guys can see a whiteboard here. Let's see if I can. So I equals V times R. So IVR is the income of the property is equal to the value of the property times the rate at which that property is returning. So if I have a property that is like, so if it says, hey, what's the so Ian will say like, what's the rate of return on a $1 million property that produces $120,000 a year in net income? Well, all I do is I plug those numbers in this equation, and I just follow standard mathematical practices, right? So the income is $120,000 a year, and that's going to be equal to the value, which we said it was $1 million property, times the rate. Well, I don't know the rate, so now I have to take $120,000 property and divide it by $120,000 in income. Oops. And divide it by $1 million in value. And that's going to equal the rate. So I'm guessing that is going to be 12%, right? So now the rate,
yep.
What's that?
I think what I did was had the equal sign in the wrong spot. So that actually makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Well, and so that's, look, and as long as you start with it in the right way. So income equals value times rate. Income, what we just saw, divided by value equals rate. Rate divided by income equals value, right? So with that one equation, depending on what you multiply and divide by, you can get, if you have any of the two, you can get the third one. And the only time you should be doing that is when you get questions around investment properties and things of that nature, because that's where that's going to apply. If you see rate related to lending, that's completely different. Does that answer your question?
Yep, 100%. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. All right, what else do we have, guys? All right, Nicole, I know you joined us late. We're working through just like, sort of a ask me anything, open forum, not doing practice problems just yet. So is there something specifically about contracts that you're, a concept that you struggle with? Is it, I always get stuck on the mailbox rule. Like what,
Yeah. I think it's more like the bilateral and the different types of contracts. Like, okay. I feel like they give us different questions all the time and they're worded differently, and then it confuses me.
Yep. So, I'll admit it's easier to understand these things from the side of somebody who does real estate transactions, because you're like, oh yeah, duh, that makes sense. So there are two types of contracts that you'll see questions on. There are bilateral contracts and unilateral contracts, right? And then where you probably get tripped up is like, oh, and sometimes there's one called an option, right? Well, the option is simply a unilateral contract. Options, so let's start with the really easy one, bilateral contracts. That means that it's a contract in which both parties have to agree and perform specific actions, right? And bilateral, like biped or bicycle or binoculars means two, right? So when you hear bilateral, it means both parties have to agree and do things, right? That's a bilateral contract. Unilateral is like unicorn or unicycle in that there is one. That means one party gets to make the decision. Okay. So the one party making the decision is the optionee, the person with the option, right? So I'll give you an example of where you see this most common. We have about 20,000 square feet of office space as a company. Our lease term is expiring in the contract in 2025, but we have an option to extend that another 5 years to get us to 2030. Okay. Now, when 2025 rolls around, that landlord does not get to decide whether or not we stay. Only one person decides whether or not we get a contract or we stay in that space from 2025 to 2030, and it's me.
Okay.
Right. So there's one decision maker. There's one person who calls the shot, and that's a unilateral contract. Now, I just, we just negotiated a lease on the other side of town, let's say. Well, I have to make a decision to sign that lease at a certain rate, and the landlord has to make a decision to activate that lease at a certain rate. So there are two decision makers in that.
So that makes it bilateral.
Two decision makers, one decision maker, unilateral. All options are unilateral contracts.
Okay. All options are unilateral. Okay. That makes sense.
So Ian, yes, all option contracts are unilateral contracts. You cannot have a bilateral option contract, right?
Thank you.
Keep them coming. That's a great question. What are dower rights?
Oh, that's when you're married, and period.
Yeah, so that's I think related to taking title. It's a form of taking title, and it relates to the impact of marriage. Since we don't consult on title and I'm not married, that's pretty far out of my depth. But when you see dower rights, think marriage. It's marriage related to how you take title or how title is distributed. So dower equals marriage. Probate equals death. You see probate in a question, think death. If it's going to probate court or going through probate, it means somebody died. Or if somebody died, specifically if somebody died intestate, which means without a will to direct the disbursement of their belongings, that goes to probate court. If they die with a will, it skips probate, which, if you or your loved ones don't have a will, get one, because probate court can be a headache. No will, no heir, a sheet. Difference between joint tenancy and tenancy in common. I'm gonna have to crowdsource the answer to that one. Again, this is okay. And I'll just be honest with you guys. This exam, it's vocabulary test in one part, it's a math test in another part. If anybody ever asks you about how to take title and tenancy in common and tenant, you can't answer that question. It could be considered unauthorized practice of law. So that's why I don't know, because I've never answered that question before. And if somebody asks me, I say, hey, that's a great question. Would you like to talk to my lawyer? But unfortunately, that won't be part of the multiple choice on your exam. So you will have to just memorize these, and at the risk of giving you bad information, we'll circle back at the end, and we'll look that up together. Sound good?
Hey, I'd like to just add on that, just taking a test a couple of times, handful of times actually. What you just said is an option for the question. Because they'll have a question asking, like, a couple asks, what's the difference between joint? And you always have to say, refer to a lawyer, or it's not in my expertise.
Yep.
So I never had to actually define between the two. It's always asking, like, if someone asks you, what's the difference?
Oh,
What do you
yeah.
say in the situation?
Yep. You always say, based on, my license, I can't answer that question. I can refer you. Title companies can answer that question. Title lawyers, any lawyer can answer that question. You as a real estate agent can't. But that's good. That's a good call, Bill. Yeah, better safe than sorry than unauthorized practice of law. I mean, don't want to be a lawyer, let alone impersonate one. No offense to any lawyers on the call. But what else? What else? Those are great. Those are great questions. I feel like we're vibing here. Let's keep going.
I would just kind of like to build on that is, I've taken it multiple times, and, just taking from the copy cram, feel pretty confident, score pretty high on each subject. And I go in there and get my results. I'm like, man, it doesn't look like I was really prepared for it. Property management, for example, I always do really well on that. Like first time, just rapid questions, answer the first time. And then I do on the test, and it's like, man, I got like 3, 4 right. What happened here? So I don't know if my question is more like test taking, but it's like, I feel like the copy cram is a good source, but it's not really getting me over the hump.
Yeah.
On that part.
Well, we'll get to, let's give it about 10 more minutes, and we'll get to a breakdown on the test taking stuff. And thanks for sharing that. Matching options in CompuCram. Ian, can you be a little bit more elaborate? The test is all I see what you're saying. You're asking if do the matching. You mean like the definitions? Yeah. So Ian
Sorry,
said,
my dog's going nuts. But yeah, I started using the matching because I wasn't understanding CompuCram either. But when I switched the study type to matching, that just helped me get hundreds on all the little practice tests they make you do. Just a thought for you, Bill, if it might help you.
Nicole, did you have another question? I feel like you had unmuted momentarily.
Yeah, I was going into my CompuCram to kind of get some background on the piece that I failed the worst, that I thought I knew the best, was general principles of agency. And all on my CompuCram test, I aced them. Like I got 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. And then on my actual test, I only got 3 out of 10. So that was a little concerning for me, but I'm trying to just look through the tests and see like the practice test to see, like I said, I felt like I knew this.
Was there any, is there any, do you remember being surprised by any questions? You're like, oh man, there was a question about riparian rights or something like that, which is ownership.
The water
related to a river specifically, I believe, is in riparian rights. What is a variance? Kyla, do you want to unmute and just give me maybe a little bit more specific answer so I can or question rather. So I don't want to make sure I answer the question behind the question, perhaps.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was unmuted. I use Prep Agent, and they one of my questions basically asks, which of the following factors contributes most to the maintenance of value in a well-planned residential community? And one of the answers is variances, which allows highest and best use of every parcel.
Okay.
But I don't know exactly what a variance is.
Yeah, so a variance is simply just something that allows things to be different, right? At the most basic definition. But in this situation, a variance would be, so that is a residential development with a variance for highest and best use. Well, highest and best use might be a gas station or, something other than a residential home, which could have a negative impact on property values, which is why, the majority of cities throughout the United States have zoning where you have to, it's residential and commercial are separate. And it's only, unique situations where variances are granted. But a variance is just like a deviation from the existing policy or standard. Does that answer your question? Make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank
Very
you.
cool. What else?
This is Robin McKnight. I didn't pass the national portion again, and it just seems like the questions are much more wordy. It seems like they're almost completely different than the questions in the CompuCram, and that's just some feedback that I want to give, because when I take the exam, it's like seems like things I haven't even seen, or maybe I just don't remember, but I just wanted to share that feedback.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that if the question, there's two things. Like if the questions are wordier, like, how's this? In my experience, having helped a lot of people through this, the CompuCram can be a very good tool, but it can be, if it's the only way that you are studying, and two, if you are repeating it at a very, very consistently, like if you're taking the CompuCram daily, something happens in your brain where you start to recognize the questions and you are not thinking about the process of answering the question. You're trying to remember what the correct answer is. And I think that that's where, some is good, but more might not always be better with the CompuCram. And, I think Kyla said that she is on Prep Agent. Some people use the CE shop. There are a number of different tools out there. And if you feel like you've kind of beat the brakes off of one of them, then switch it up, because there will be different questions, or there will be different offerings out there that will ask it in a different way. And the CompuCram is meant for probably 3 parts. If it's 3 parts test prep, 3 to 4 parts test prep, 1 to 2 parts, content review. But I also think Ian's suggestion of make sure that you're not just answering the questions, but you're doing the flashcards and doing the definitions.
Okay.
If you have those, the definitions specifically, all the questions are going to center around, some piece of material, and the definitions will guide you through. Or if you understand the concepts through the flashcards, the questions will be different, right? And you'll still be able to say, oh, this is like that concept, right? Like the truth in lending questions will not be exactly the same, but if you understand that, hey, with truth in lending, if I disclose any part of the terms or rate or conditions, then I have to disclose all of them, then everything you need to know about truth in lending. So, and maybe that's a good transition just for, I'll say a little bit more on test prep, and then we'll talk about test taking, and then we'll go from there. So test prep, I think that 2 things. One, as I just said, there is test prep, and then there is, like study work, right? So the benefit of the CompuCram is you can simulate a full 3-hour exam. If you are just doing each section by section, it's probably not the best use of that tool. So once a week, at most maybe twice a week, I would take the full 3-hour diagnostic exam. That's going to be that's truly test prep. The questions come at you at random. You don't know which questions you're going to get. You get a set amount of each one, but you're not just sitting there running contracts 5 times in a row. I would do that once a week. And then in that, you will score better on some, worse on others. And then, use all 3 phases of the game. Just because you got 5, if you got 5 questions wrong in the contract section when you took the diagnostic, that doesn't mean you should just run the contract section over until you get a 10 out of 10. Because it's not that you didn't get the questions right as much as it is you didn't understand the concept sufficiently to be able to answer the questions correctly. So do the flashcards, do the definitions, do the matching, then you hit those a couple times and then jump back in, knock out some questions, make sure you can apply the concepts, and then, pick your next best one to run that through. But, if you're taking the diagnostic 1 or 2 days a week, hit your books, watch one of these old videos, watch, whatever you need to like get some secondary form of content, somebody else's voice, somebody else's test prep or description into your ear. And then if you got the books, I would just break the binding on the books once a week, go to the end of the chapters where they're like summarizing all the key points, highlight, read, and then, rinse and repeat every 3 or 4 days. But I think that if you're only doing sections of the CompuCram, right, you're limiting. And if you've taken the test a few times, or you're like, you're not confident in the CompuCram, grab one of the other tools. There's several out there. If they didn't work, they would no longer exist. But like from a prep standpoint, try and get that diagnostic in, because that's gonna simulate what it looks like to actually take the full 3-hour exam. Now let's talk about taking the full 3-hour exam. I strongly recommend taking it in person. I've heard some horror stories about taking it online. I have heard that it is, very nerve-wracking, especially if you're in a household that has any distractions. Like Nicole, I see your little one there. And so, if that person rolls up and, during your test online, they will just shut you down. And your head has to stay inside of a circle, and it's really uncomfortable. Now, that being said, it's also uncomfortable to go into the testing facility, because those, I think, are highly trained professionals meant to be mean to you. So just be mentally prepared for the fact that you're not going to get a warm welcome at the PSI testing center. I've never been to county jail, but I liken that it's probably similar to be checked into county as it is to be checked into your PSI exam. I nearly had to take the exam shirtless because I didn't know I couldn't have a hood, and they freaked out. And so just be prepared, because if it rattles you a little bit, then that could throw you off. So if like this person's not going to be very nice, because the testing facilities, I mean, they're giving people, there are like pharmacists in there for being able to write prescriptions. There's police officers in there for certification. You're not just taking it with all other real estate agents. Anybody that's getting a state level certification takes it at a PSI testing center. So that's why they have to be so strict, right? And so just if you know that, you won't get rattled, right? You won't get rattled. And now you're out of the curve, right? So now there's how many questions are there? There's 120 questions, right? 120 questions. You get 3 hours and 15 minutes, I believe. So that is a little bit more than 90 seconds a question, which you're like, oh my God, like that seems like that's really fast, right? Now, remember, some of these you're going to know dead to rights, and it's going to take you 10 seconds to answer a question. Okay, now you got 3 minutes for the next one. So here's the strategy. While you're taking the test, you can skip questions. You can flag questions, right? And say, I'm going to come back to this question. And I always tell the story about my very first question on the exam when I took it. It was something I felt like I'd never heard of. It might as well have been written in Latin. It was completely absurd. And I was like, oh my God, I have told everybody and their brother that I'm taking this exam. There's no way I'm going to pass. And I was like, oh, I saw a skip option. So I skip, right? And then the next one, equally bad. I'm like, well, skipping that one too. So then I get to question number 3, and it's like, what are riparian rights? And I'm like, water, got it, zing, got my question down, right? And then the next question, and then when I got to a hard one, I skipped it. I got to a word problem that I knew was going to take, I was going to have to read and find what I was looking for, skip. I did one pass where it was like, I got answers to every question that I knew, right? So it took me about 45 minutes to answer about 65 questions. Okay. So now I got 2.5 hours for the last 55 questions. Huge advantage, right? Because, at least, when I took the exam and Franklin has taken it, like there are questions that are very simple, like just definition, right? Or it's like, what does TILA stand for, right? And you will get a couple of those. Here's the thing. If that's the first question or the 120th question, you have to make sure you get that question right. So what this strategy allows you to do is make sure that you're not running up against time, right? And you're not having to rush through the last 10 questions that you can certainly get right if you gave yourself time. So first pass, your goal is to answer as many questions as you know. It might be 40, it might be 50, but like get the sure things done, because you need 56 on the national and 28 on the state, right? 70%. If you conceivably can get 50 or 60 questions in your first pass that that's 50, you're at a 50%, right? So then all you need to do is get a little bit more out of the next couple of rounds. So the second time you go around, what you want to focus on, you're not going back to anything that you're like, holy crap, this looks like it's in Greek. This looks like it's in some alien made up the question. What you're going to do the second time around is hit your word problems, right? So the first pass, what it does is it expands the amount of time you have per remaining question, right? So if I have 60 questions in 2.5 hours, well, now I have 2.5 minutes per question. So now I can read through and I can say, okay, what is this question asking me? What are the answers saying? Bang, next one. And you only do the word problems that round, which there will probably be anywhere from 15 to 20, right? And that might take a full hour, right? So now, I got 40 questions left and I got an hour and a half to do them, right? So I got 2 minutes a question. But these are what's left are the things that like I didn't really understand the first time around. So now you're going to do your third pass, which is, hey, in answering all of those previous questions, was there anything that got knocked loose in my head that I now understand what this question is asking me? Because you'll get the definition for question number 22 from something in question number 78. But when you come back around to it, you're like, oh yeah, that's what that means. Okay, bang. Now you're gonna go through and just look for those. There might be 10, 12 of them that you're like, oh, got it now. Thank God I skipped that question and came back. All right, now you've completed 85% of the test, right? and you've done it in a way that you've guaranteed that the questions that you can get right, you got right. The questions that took the most time, you gave the most time. The questions that, were most confusing might have been less confusing by the time you got through 2/3 of the test. Now you got 10 or 15 questions left. At this point, if everything worked out well, you might not even need them. Here's the thing I'll tell you. If you got 16 questions left and you got multiple choice, 4 multiple choice in each one, you could just put the same letter for every one and you're probably going to get 4 of them right. Right. Or you could take the time to eliminate wrong answers, right? Like if you can't remember whether, you can't remember it, but something's wrong and you want to make sure like, well, I know it's not regulation Z. Okay, then eliminate it. Now you just gave yourself a better chance. But what you're looking at is, hey, out of these last 15 questions, if I can get 3 to 5 of them right, that might be what pushes me over the edge. And so you're actually going to take the test 4 times. The first time, remember why you're doing this. You're getting every question right that you can, regardless of where it falls in order. And that's going to reduce the number of questions while still leaving a lot of time. Then you're going to answer all of the wordy word problems that are going to take your time, because now you've got more time per question to answer. Then you're going to go back to the most confusing questions, hoping that something got knocked loose and answering those other ones. And then finally, you're just going to guess. Any questions, comments, concerns, smart remarks, physical threats, anything directed at me after that diatribe?
I like your suggestions because I think that would help me stress out less. I haven't taken the test yet at all.
Yeah.
But you get anxious because you know it's important, and then you get yourself all flustered about it. So I think the fact, like you're saying, go through and do the easy stuff first.
Yeah.
And at least that way you can breathe a little bit and then do the next stuff and you can breathe a little more type thing.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to have happen is you get a word problem on your first one and it takes you 7 minutes to do it. And you're like, oh shit, now what am I going to do? Right? Like you just leave that for when it's appropriate. And you get when you are primed and fresh and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you get through all the sure things. Then once you have a time advantage on the exam, you do the timely things. Then you do the confusing things. Then you do the stuff that you have no idea what it could possibly be. And ideally, there's only like 10 or 12 questions that you have no idea what it could possibly be.
There's also a timer you can turn off and on. You can see how much time you got left. That helps me with my anxiety of trying to push through it and see if I got it, on time. So you got time to like take a deep breath at times and kind of reset your brain. If you got stumped on a question, to kind of build your confidence up. That's just my advice as far as that, feeling that you have like 2 minutes or 7 minutes on one problem.
I dig it. Anything else? Last call for anything tonight? I'm going to sneak out of here a little bit early. Was this a helpful format versus just hitting CompuCram questions and typing stuff into the box? Do you guys want to do maybe this a little bit more frequently? And here's the thing, like maybe it's better to use it this way. Like as you study throughout the week, if there's something that you just can't wrap your head around or you can't crack the code on, like jot it down, set it to the side. And then we will jot it down, set it to the side, and then you can bring it here and be like, hey, here's the question, right? Or here's what I'm struggling with this week. And we can go from there.
I like that because the questions, like you said, I'm using CompuCram, so when we're doing the questions, they're pretty much the same questions. So I would,
yeah, right. It's the same question, but in my voice.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I do like this. I do like this better. especially since I've taken the test. So I don't
Yeah.
felt it right.
And guys, like I want everybody on here, like, you know, don't be intimidated by the fact that you're hearing people talk about how they've taken the test a few times. And for the folks of you who have taken the test a few times, you hear me say it every time. Don't be discouraged, because as soon as you're done with this, no one's ever going to ask how many times you passed the exam. No one's ever going to ask what you got on the test. And if somebody does, you always tell them that you passed on your first try and that you got somewhere in the 90s.
I also want to add, for those who are brave enough to say, look, I've done it and screwed it up and done it again, you know, I think they need kudos for keep persevering, you know, to not just be like, oh, well, screw it, I'm done, and give up. So I think the people that have done it more than once, again, I haven't done it yet. You know, I think they need to be congratulated for keep going and keep persevering and not giving up on it. So.
Thank you. I have a quick question. If we passed one part and didn't pass the other, do we have to retake it?
So you, if you pass one part, not the other, you do not have to retake the part that you passed.
Oh, that's awesome.
Unless, like, so your initial application to the Ohio Division of Real Estate is good for 1 year,
Okay.
right? And so if, you know, some people apply and then they don't take the test for 6 months, and then they pass one, and then they study for another 3 months and they don't pass it after that time. Once 1 year is up, that application is expired and you have to pass them both again. So my advice is always get in
Retake it
there.
as soon as
If you
possible.
don't pass, get in there as fast as you can, again and again and again.
Okay. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that, because now I don't have to take one part. My son is over here clapping.
That's awesome.
Thank you for
Great.
this. I appreciate it.
All right, team, we'll do it in the same format next week. And if anybody needs anything in the meantime, you all have my email, my phone number. Please reach out. You know, as much as you are not in the business of taking tests, I'm not in the business of helping people prepare for them. It's just what we do so we can get you to help clients buy, sell, and invest in real estate. Have a great night, everyone.